Hello everyone, and welcome back to Introduction to OPCloud. In today's session, we're going to talk about advanced feature in OPCloud, and specifically using simulations with conditions and loops. Currently, OPCloud supports how to do conditions and loops in several ways. We will start with the regular way of conceptual modeling, and later on we will add computational way in order to help us do some loops and conditions. Let's do a simple example with simulations and conditions. Let's create a simple model, including an object, process, and some kind of result file. And let's say that we are going to use it in order to do some kind of iterations. And when we get to a specific amount of iteration, we will finish the loop. So we created an object 1 and the result of object 2 and the process. Let's do in Zoom. In OPM, in order to do a condition, we have a process, and then we'll have a result object. Let's add it with two states. We can see that now we have B processing, C and D processing, and the result object 3. We will add state to it. We have state 1 and state 2. Let's say the result is a yes or no or something like that. So let's start with doing some kind of name changing. So let's select yes and no for our two states. In order to create a condition, we will link from the state to the process and select the instrument condition. As we've seen before, we select the instrument condition, click on the link, and now we have a condition. Then we select the same for the other state. As you can see, now we are doing two states with two processes. Let's decide that C processing is doing a loop. We will connect it with invocation link. Once it's created, we can point it to a specific port so it will be easier to see. And we'll move the object 1 into the specific B processing, just for the model. Now, what we have here is the option that if B is creating object 3, if it's a yes, it will do a loop again. If it's no, it will result in object 2 and the simulation and execution will be finished. Now, currently in OPCloud, when we have this specific condition and this specific configuration, it means that B process will generate object 3 randomly in state yes or state no, meaning that 50% of the time it will be yes and 50% of the time it will be no. Let's see how it works. We'll select the run simulation. Let's give it a little bit more speed and let's click on running it. As you can see, it selected no and the simulation is finished. Let's run it again. This time it selected yes, and thus it's doing a loop until it will get and selected a no, and then it will be finished. Let's wait for it. Statistically, it will be very soon. Let's hope so. Now, let's see how we can decide specifically what the result of the simulation will be. If we will go and put our result on a specific state, that means that each time a simulation will be run, we will get the same result on the state no. For example, if I will run it 5 times now, you will be able to see that each time it will be a no. There is no other option for it. It will be a no. Now, let's think about how we can use it to do our simulation even better. The next thing we can do is go back, put it back in our object 3, and create a computational process that will yield our result according to what we want. If we use the user-defined functions, and now we have the code, we just need to return the needed value. If, for example, we'll select no, as you can see here, it means just like we connected directly object 3 to state no, and thus the simulation will always go to no. You can see here that it's going to no. Now, if we want to put it to yes, let's change it. We can use the update computation directly. Now, it will, of course, go into the yes. Now, since we selected automatically that it will always be yes, we created an infinite loop. We will need to stop the simulation. If we will select a different option, we can select whether it's yes or no, put condition in the computational process, and so on. The next thing we can do is to define an actual value. We can select the text. Let's put yes. We'll add no. And as you can see, now we have the percentage of the result you want to get from the computational process. If we use 50-50, it means that 50% of the time it will be yes and 50% of the time it will be no. Let's use 20-80 in order for us to see some of it. We'll set the value, and while we click the simulation, you can see that the process is selected to simulation. Now, let's run it and see what happens. As you can see, it was selected a no. Let's run it again. And as we know, there is 80% chance that it will be a no, but there is 20% chance that it will be yes. So, statistically speaking, we shall have it very soon. As you can see, it was yes. Now, select it again, and now it was a no, and thus we finished our simulation. In conclusion, we see several methods to select a specific state and use it into simulation using regular options without computation. If we connect it directly to an object, it will randomly select it with equal statistical opportunity, yes or no. If we connect it to a specific state, it will always be that state. If we have an invocation link, it will call it as a loop. If we use computational process, we can define whether we want a specific state yes or specific state no, or any other state depending on the object. And we can, of course, do some calculations and according to that, select the specific state. And then we can, of course, use the simulation, generating values and randomly or statistically change according to our needs the specific yield states. Thank you.